All right. In this short and sweet example, we have an exciting use case of text to SQL where we'll be translating natural language queries into actual business intelligence. We have three key components to this. Our database is Snowflake, our large language model, which is in this case Anthropic Claude, and of course SnapLogic as our integration platform of choice. So what we have is a few key components. First of all, we'll be taking three different sets of inputs. One is our database schema, and what this does is it defines all the different fields that are found in our database. So what we have is a database full of different wine information. So where does it come from? What's the price? What's the description? And all the relevant details around it. So we're telling our large language model, what does our data actually look like? Secondly, we'll have a set of examples of what we're expecting to be generated. In this case, what we'll be telling our large language model is that we want a comment of what it is it's trying to do and the actual valid SQL query for how to extract said information. And last but most important, we'll also have the actual query of our user. The way we'll be getting this query is we have exposed this process as a REST API through SnapLogic, callable externally. So we'll take in our user query coming from an external source, combine it with the information we have so far. And then what we'll do is we'll be using SnapLogic's a prompt composer in order to generate the actual prompt for our large language model. So we take in our data and we can see the example of what it looks like raw and completely unfiltered. Then we create our actual prompt and we'll have all of our key details. So the actual schema information, the examples, the user prompt coming in, and we've added some additional keywords for general accuracy improvements, things like think step by step and take your time, anecdotally do improve the general quality of large language model outputs, as well as a few extra considerations to have. For example, make sure you add double quotes around relevant field names because we're dealing with Snowflake, which has its own certain caveats. And what we can see is what our template looks like once it's been processed. So there's a lot of data we're sending to the large language model. Finally, once we're making the actual call to said LLM, in this case, Anthropic Claude 3.5, the only thing we'll change here is we'll be adding what we call JSON mode. What this does is tells our final output to exclude all the typical details of an LLM response, such as, hey, sure, no problem, here's your result. Anything else I can help you with? We're excluding all of that, and instead all we are retrieving is a JSON query. In this case, it's called query to execute, and it contains the actual SQL query that it will run based on the question we've given and what it generated. Finally, despite being a low-code platform, SnapLogic also allows you to write SQL or write code should you desire to in extremely niche cases. And that's exactly what we'll be doing. We'll be taking our query, passing it through to our execute connector, and letting it do its magic. And the end result we can see is the actual data that we received for our database. And now we can see what this looks like in action. So we have our front end exposed over Streamlit as an open source choice. We've given the details to our associated REST API exposed through SnapLogic. And finally, let's give it a question. Let's go for something like, what are the top three most expensive wines with the words hint of caramel in their description? So this now sends this question back to our overall process. The process does a little bit of calculating, does its magic, and what we get is a list of responses that fit our criteria. And we also get a query that's been generated. So should we want to, we can also double check it ourselves. That'll be it for today. Thank you for your time and see you on the next one.